Have you ever built a life that looked perfect on paper, but felt quite off inside? That's where I find myself in paradise. Burnt out and still trying to prove I was okay. By the time I arrived in Bali, I was already burnt out. Not from failure this time around, but from caring too much for too long. Even though I had done the inner work, followed my purpose, built something meaningful to the collective from the heart, I was exhausted, running on empty. I had poured so much into conscious matters. Not just time, not just effort, but identity, intention, heart and soul. And I thought, maybe now, finally, I'll be able to breathe. Settling in Bali wasn't a random choice. It had been a dream for over 2 years prior. I imagined landing there and feeling instantly at peace, finding my community of like-minded people, being creatively energized, feeling aligned with everything I believed in. I had done everything in my power to make it happen. And I made it. But let's backtrack for a second. Before even arriving, I'd spent 10 days in Java.
I've landed! I'm in Indonesia. It's extremely long, but here we are. I'm so excited.
And it felt like magic. Jakarta was an unexpected surprise, not loud in the way you'd think, but grounded, human. The people were so kind, respectful, generous without pretense or trying to sell you something. And that was my first point of contact with Indonesians. The experience felt like an early exhale. And in my mind, Bali would be the obvious continuation of that magic. But even deeper, even better. The work I've done on myself, the sacrifices I made, the dreams I'd carried for years, I thought this would be the chapter where it all clicked. Because Bali was supposed to be the place where everything finally made sense for me. After years of overachieving, burning out several times, and rebuilding, this felt like the payoff, the continuation of the healing era I was in. The reward for choosing the path that felt true to my mind, my body, and my soul. And it made sense, right? A place full of nature, beauty, rituals, spirituality, wellness, slow living, but also emotional honesty, nourishment, embodiment, not sold, but lived. These weren't just trends I liked, these were my go-to, my way of being, a rhythm I already knew. It wasn't something I curated for social media. It was how I led myself behind closed doors in the quiet of my home. So I arrived with intention. I wasn't escaping something. I was walking towards something I believed in. And I landed with so much hope. Not naive hope. Earned hope. The kind that builds after everything you've endured and still choose to believe in something better.
So I feel so incredibly blessed right now. And yeah, I'm gonna keep on discovering, keep on being open-minded, keep on trying to make connections. And I'm looking forward to my stay. I've been in a little bit of a rut lately. I feel like so drowsy, so exhausted. I didn't want to leave the Airbnb, but now I feel like so much better. I think it was just like adjusting and all of the tiredness that I accumulated. So I'm gonna keep on enjoying.
I truly believe Bali would hold me, that it will receive me, that it will meet me with the same energy I was carrying. Truth, integrity, intention. Again, I didn't come to escape, but to genuinely connect. I came to return to myself, to settle in a place that seemed made for people like me. I wasn't broken, I wasn't lost, but I was burned out. I was carrying a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged. The weight of needing this chapter to work. I brought my purpose with me, my vision, my heart. But what I didn't realize was that I also brought the same system that had burned me out before, just wrapped in a prettier packaging. The 𝗙𝗺𝗀𝗀𝘀 system, the prove yourself through passion system, the inner pressure that says, if it doesn't work, it must be me. That's what no one tells you. Even when you're doing something deeply aligned, you can still over-effort your way into exhaustion. You can still burn yourself out even when you're doing quote-unquote all the right things. I've done it in law, I've done it in someone else's business before, and now, without realizing it, I was doing it in my own dream because I was so sure I was finally on the right path and now at the quote-unquote, again, right place. And because I believe so deeply in conscious matters, its mission, I ignored the signs. I downplayed what was happening because the two burnouts I experienced before were different. This one was not so intense and right in my face. And it was also the path I chosen for myself, consciously. It was the subtle inattention, the tightening, the hard effort. I kept telling myself, just give it time, it'll make sense soon. And for a while, it kind of did. I thought I made it. I remember some days were just blessings after blessings of majestic nature, the colors, the smells, the ocean, the offerings on the street, the incredible food, the locals. I had moments of joy, beautiful days, new connections, even though fleeting. It was beautiful.
Go shorty, it's my birthday. You want a party like it's my birthday. Happy birthday in Bali. How exciting. Happy birthday,
And I wanted to believe that one side of the coin meant I was safe now, that it was going to work. But very quickly, the more I would resist the subtle tension with doing more and intellectualizing everything, the more the internal tightening would feel. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet at first. Just this low level hum of something's off. And I did what I've always done when something feels off. I try to fix it. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I need to give it time. But even as I try to soften and adapt, something in me knew I was starting to force again. I wasn't chasing approval from others, but I was chasing relief, tangible results. I thought this chapter would be the exhale, the place I'd finally feel held and inspired and deeply connected. But the more I try to feel that, the more resistance I would experience. Like something wasn't landing. Like something was slightly off, but I couldn't put my finger on it yet. I try to reframe it. Maybe I just need to adjust. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe it's just not the right group of people or not the right part of the island for me. And the hardest part was nothing looked wrong. On the outside, the food was nourishing, the beach walks were peaceful, the place was filled with digital nomads enjoying the same lifestyle as me and equally obsessed with yoga and meditation. But I didn't feel at peace. I felt pressure. And not so much from the place, from myself. But the truth is, I knew. Deep down, I knew I was pushing again, trying to prove something again. But I didn't want to be disappointed again. And even though I couldn't articulate it at the time, internally, everything felt like almost like a battle. Everything was so hard. I felt like so misunderstood, not fitting anywhere, and just a huge amount of disappointment that I didn't want to accept. And that's when the unraveling began. Quietly, slowly, internally, until it became loud and uncomfortable externally. I came to Bali thinking I would find clarity. Instead, I started to see the threads of a system I hadn't realized I was still using. A system of performance, a system of emotional self-overriding, a system of mistaking purpose for pressure again. And the worst part, I didn't know how to stop. Because on the outside, everything looked like a dream, and it would have been so ungrateful of me to not feel fulfilled over there. But on the inside, something was slipping, crushing me more intensely by the days passing by. At first, I thought it was just me. But as time passed, I started noticing something I couldn't unsee. A pattern. The people I was meeting, the ones I expected to feel deeply connected with, started reflecting something that felt off. Not because they were bad people, not because they weren't on what looks like the wellness path, but because something in the energy felt performative, almost con artist-like. I couldn't explain it at first, but it kept happening over and over again. I kept on meeting people who, in their own way, were shape-shifting. Not necessarily to deceive, but to belong, to be seen, to become someone they thought they should be. Some were crafting a new identity to escape an old one. Some were carefully casting others in their quote-unquote spiritual influencer success story. And some were curating the entire presence, not just online, but in every conversation, every glance, every gathering. And the energy didn't lie. I was so confused because to me, wellness, spirituality, everything around well-being is real. You cannot play with this. You cannot make it something trendy or something that seems like a commodity. And it started affecting me so much. It felt so heavy, so uncomfortable, so not real. These weren't people I judged, or maybe I did for a minute, because I'm human. However, I tried to understand them. But no matter how open I stayed, how much grace I offered, it never quite landed. And over time, it started to feel like no one was actually there. Just projections, personas, narratives. What's your story? And they will like on the spot give you the rehearsed story aligned with the new persona. And I came for genuine connection, a community. And what I found was performative spirituality and wellness in every direction. A disconnect between the identity they were presenting and what they were actually living. And it created an energetic dissonance I couldn't ignore and couldn't get on board with. With one person, every interaction she would have with me felt curated. Every moment, a scene in a narrative she was directing, where the rest of us were cast as supporting characters in a version of her healing journey she wanted the world to see and the story she will tell on her social media. With another one, I felt blindsided and borderline betrayed by the identity curation, another illusion, when they pretended to show up with a certain identity, but in reality, they eventually disclosed to me that they were the opposite. So it was always like these mind-boggling moments. And these people weren't doing what I was doing per se, but they were doing something I recognized at the end of the day. And maybe that was the lesson. It wasn't about them. It was about what they reflected back to me. I stopped trying to make community happen, but I was still trying to make Bali work. I was still showing up from a place of, I have to make this work, not I get to be. Mine looked like purpose, like presence, like knowing what I was doing. But underneath it all, I was still chasing alignment like it was something to earn.
When I look at the waves, it makes me think about the ebbs and flows of life and how nothing is smooth, but if we take the wave the right way, we should be fine. Even though we can dip a little bit, we always go up again. So a reminder to remember that right now what you're going through is just a chapter. It's just a little mark in your whole book. And if it's not one that you are enjoying or feel like you can be your best self right now, keep on trusting yourself, and little by little, you'll go up the wave again.
And that's what I didn't see yet. The people were only part of the pattern. What was really being shown was the energy I was still carrying. The deeper layer of perfectionism and high performance that I didn't know was still inside me. I thought that I dealt with that I healed that. But the deeper layer of that shadow was still existing within me. And I guess even if I definitely wasn't expressing my own performance the same way as the people I encountered, it also said something about me. I wasn't lying about what I stood for. I wasn't pretending. I meant everything I said, and I truly lived it behind closed doors. But I hadn't yet learned how to live it without pressure, without trying to prove, without having to earn it. I was still showing up from a place of needing my values to land somewhere, needing them to work, to resonate, and to be proven. And these people, their projections, their image management, their lack of groundedness outside of the wellness practices, they didn't just trigger vivid frustration in me, they mirrored the places in me that still weren't fully free. And in a strange way, in hindsight, I'm very grateful because their performances helped me recognize my own. Not the kind you see online, not the curated, glossy kind, but the internal performance of being okay, of holding it all, of being the one who gets it, who teaches it, who lives it, even when I'm breaking down inside. And maybe deep down, I wasn't looking for community. Maybe I was looking for a space where I could finally stop performing. And when I didn't find it, when I couldn't find resonance despite all the quote-unquote right circumstances, it cracked something in me open. And maybe, just maybe, that was the mirror. A reflection of all the parts of me still trying to be accepted rather than expressed. At the time, I didn't know that. I didn't have that clarity yet. All I knew was that something hurt a lot. A deep sadness and despair were sitting on my chest. That nothing made sense. In that I was grieving something I couldn't even explain. A heavy grief I hadn't given myself permission to feel before. The grief of being the one who always sees too much, who senses the incongruence, who doesn't just get disappointed, but feels disheartened, and who starts wondering if it's her fault. The ones who keeps on doing the healing, but goes back to different angles of the same obstacle. And instead of helping me release it, this beautiful island, slowly but surely, started reflecting it back to me. And oh boy, that was an emotional battlefield. But I'll stop here for now and come back with the rest of that story in the next video. And if this already spoke to something in you, that quiet inner pressure to keep it all together, even when everything feels off, you'll find 2 resources I created to support you right where you are. One is a free guide to help you see what's really going on beneath the surface, the inner critic patterns you've been living with, and how to begin interrupting them. The other is my ebook, From Pressure to Empowerment, for when you're ready to go deeper and start shifting the way you think, feel, and respond under pressure. You'll find both in the description below. Choose what feels like an exhale and leave the rest for later. And I promise to come back with a part 2 of this video, where you'll understand better the shift that happened in me, and which is also the reason why I created these new resources for you. As always, stay true, keep showing up for yourself, and let your soul lead the way.